Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and this is Before Dawn on this August the 17th of 2022. Unfortunately, Dylan, the human design maven, cannot make it tonight. He lost someone in his family today, very close to him, family member, and we're sending our love and prayers to him, and it's just terrible, and I feel for him very deeply right now in this process. But the show must go on. So make sure that you join us on highvibe.tv, where we, of course, have so much content, all the exclusive content, especially all the horoscopes and all the stuff that really does help you every day, every week. All that stuff is on Highvibe TV. Of course, these talk shows are what promote to show you just even the tip of the iceberg of what you're missing out on the bigger, I guess, glacier that you can get on Highvibe. So tonight's subject, I wanted to start off with how to avoid agents in the matrix. Now, even before I really go into this concept, just this understanding of how powerful the movie The Matrix has been in the spiritual community is pretty powerful, to say the least. Especially those that really, I would say, really, I guess you could say, have woke up or definitely had their spiritual come to the universe moment. And I feel that it's an important movie, and I think the whole series is, because it really does. I'll be honest, if you apply that movie and then you apply it here and you apply it with the more spiritual ways of understanding things, it makes a lot of sense, and it actually has helped, not only in my life, but in many others. But to break down, like, what's an agent in the matrix, you have to remember the notion of what the whole concept of the Matrix movie series is, which is that there are people that are being harvested, and their energy is being used to keep literally an AI race of computer system that has taken over the earth alive, and that there is a very, very, very small majority of those humans that are not in that energy production system and that are at war with them, and they have to go into the actual matrix, which is the computer program itself, as their own avatars, to be able to even interact with the system itself, to try and figure out how to take it down, but also even to, if you really think about it, to go in and try and pull people out. The agents are there to take over the energy of somebody who is just blindly walking into that matrix life. And when there is somebody in the matrix that isn't supposed to be there because they're awake, it's more than just not supposed to be there. It's they want to take them out, because that means it takes them out in the real world. And so if we think about where we're at right now, astrologically, where we're at right now with these times, and just even understanding the great cycles that we are under right now, and the crazy moment in our lives where this is a huge, more than just a moment that you can meditate through. Hate to say it, hate to be real. It's a very odd moment here, because we are at where the idea of this world, the idea of what's really happening, who's really behind this world, what's really going on, is at the deepest core of actually the truth of what's happening. The more that you actually dig deeper into these areas, the more you're going to realize that the truth that you're looking for in your life is a completely different one than we've been told. And so to me, an agent in the matrix is people. What kind of people, though? People who are going to keep you in or away from the, I'm going to use this as the basic sense of understanding of your true spiritual path, your true happiness, your true mission. And I think that's the main thing, is that we all did come down here for a reason. Being an astrologer, that's what you end up realizing, is that every single chart that you look at, and it's mainly souls though, every soul that you look at didn't come just down here to do nothing. We all had a plan. People always like to have a debate with me on free will and whether or not it's free will or if it's fate or if it's both. Well, I always tell them that the biggest free will choice they made was to come down here. And that kind of helps, I think, get people understanding fate better and understanding that there is a predetermined plan, just the same way that, I know that Mars is going to come into Gemini this weekend. That's a predetermined element in our whole entire way that our whole universe works, the way that the earth works. I know that spring's going to come around March 20th. I know that, we're coming to the end of summer here soon in the Northern Hemisphere. And that has an effect on everything in this matrix. So the idea that, there is no fate. I think it's ironic that today, as I'm talking about fate and I'm talking about the matrix and I'm talking about, specifically I'm going to go into agents, it's on a moment where we're in a yod, a finger of God. When you look at astrology, or human design, or any of these systems, they're all fated systems. If you're going to, I don't even want to say the term play, but if you're going to be in divinity, it's something that is, it might be fun to play some tarot cards here and there. It might be fun to know your rising sign and be on CoStar and look each other up and see if you guys are fun friends or fun lovers on the pattern. But it ain't going to get you that far. And a lot of it is our deeper subconscious, not even understandings, which is really what the deepest part of the Matrix movie is to help people understand, is you're deep asleep without even realizing it, thinking that, you're awake, or thinking that, you understand this reality, when really, it's like, no, you're locked up in a pod, hooked in to a computer. And I'm not saying that's literal in this world, but the concept and the understanding of that movie is that, you're not even close, like, And so really I look at astrology as our way to break out of the false world that we live in. Especially because in astrology, it's history, that's the only way I can understand what a prediction's going to be based upon, using the planets and drawing up a horoscope is, well, how many times has this happened before? What happened in those centuries? What happened in that millennium? What happened at that date? The third time it happened, or the second time it happened, or the first time in 2,000 years since we've seen it. And finding the threads to understand that, but looking at history and seeing how much the world's changed, the idea that the biggest problem in this moment here, which I feel that will help people, but at the same time might be a little bit too much for people, is the idea that we're in the life that we're in right now and we're trying to maintain it while the universe evolves and just keep staying at the same way that, we're trying to hold on to like what it was in the 80s, what it was in the 70s, what it was in the 60s, what it was in the 50s. The idea of like how society is, you have to remember, just a little over 100 years ago, people were still riding on horseback, right? And that's something that had been going on for beyond even the understanding of how long humanity has gone. So, we made an evolution, but it's almost like, there's so many evolutions that have to continue happening, and it's all kind of happened in this last 100 years so fast that we almost don't know how to deal with it. Now, agents. And going into that, I'm going to use John Dee's work, The Sacred Symbol of Oneness, of course, which they say this book cannot be cracked. That's actually what I'm going to show you really quick. And so I think that this is kind of part of breaking the matrix. If you look up John Dee, and I don't know if there's a lot of people who aren't maybe on high vibe or haven't taken my schools or my hypergate classes, they might not know about John Dee. They might not realize he's probably one of the most prominent figures of the last millennium. Especially, he was not only one of the greatest astrologers in the world, but he literally was also the astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I. And he had work that just blows my mind to this day, still today. And I think it's really interesting. And this is just if you go on his Wikipedia and you start to look at the work that he did. So yeah, here we go. Well, and he also was the one who came up with the understanding of the establishment of colonies in the New World. So the British Empire. He's the one who gave Queen Elizabeth the idea of that. And actually, we see that today. So his significance and his way of how he actually did his work is pretty fascinating. And a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about him because they don't understand his work. They don't actually do the work of his work. And that's because they actually don't know what to do. So, oh, they have it on here, but we have to. No, it's going to be right. Oh, here we go. In 1564, and this is going to be the piece of work that I'm using, his Monas Hieroglyphica, which is the hieroglyphic monad. And that goes in an interesting part of how understanding agents and so forth is what I'm going to teach you today is actually a lot probably more different than the basics of what you're probably thinking I was going to say is like, they're just trying to keep you in the old matrix. They're trying to push you with fear, blah, blah, blah. That's all true. But I'm going to actually show you the hieroglyphic understanding of how to avoid letting a relationship or people who are not going to take you in the right direction and get you stuck. An exhaustive Kabbalistic interpretation of a glyph of his own design meant to express the mystical unity of all creation. Now, this is where it's interesting. The work was esteemed by many of Dee's contemporaries, but cannot be interpreted today in the absence of the secret oral tradition of that era. So last year, I'll be honest, the plandemic didn't stop me, or mandates didn't stop me because I didn't follow any of that crap. But I had a lot more time on my hands because I had people in LA, promoters in LA that I've been DJing with for over a decade, astrology community, all of it because I didn't have a shot wouldn't let me hang out with them. So I decided to go into this work and crack it myself. And that's what I did on Hypergate. And that's really been something that a lot of people have really appreciated in the community on High Vibe, and especially people that are in my schools, because I've spent probably more time than anybody as an astrologer completely doing a dedicated school based upon how to really use this work and to break it down. And so, number one, to understand the matrix that's pure and divine, all the planets come together in one. Like if everything doesn't come together, it's not God. That's the basic understanding. If you notice in this glyph here, you'll see that we have the sun and the moon that make Mercury, right? So you have the moon here, which is exalted in Taurus, the sun that's exalted in Aries. We have Venus, of course. Then that makes Mercury. The original Mars back in the day was the sun exalted in Aries coming down and the Aries insignia, right? And then you have Saturn right here, right? Well, I'll change colors for Saturn and Jupiter. So you have Saturn right here. And then you have Jupiter right here. So you have all the original planets here, right? Okay. What's really trippy about Jupiter and Saturn is they're just flipped. The two biggest energies. It's just Saturn flipped on the other side and then upside down. That's kind of crazy. But in life, if we use astrology, it makes sense. Why? All the planets come together to form literally a picture, but it's Mercury, the understanding of it. And that's why Mercury in Hermeticism, and why Mercury is the ruler and the messenger of the gods, right? Which are the planets, that this would be the second Mercury, if you really think about it. Mercury's ruled by twins. So what would the twin look like? The actual real reality. There's the reality that we see, or if you look in Freemasonry, you're always going to see two globes on top of the pillars, and you're going to see one that has the zodiac around belt, and you're going to see one of Earth. So that was like their concept, because you have to remember that a lot of them stole a lot of things from the Rosicrucians. And if you go into the Rosicrucian movement, you're going to see a lot more Hermeticism, and you're going to see the people who really did do Hermeticism start Rosicrucianism, which then was kind of hijacked by the Masons. So that's the basic concept of that. But what I'm going to take you on, and I really was thinking about this because knowing that Dylan is going through a really hard time and he wasn't able to make it today, I really had to go, okay, so what am I going to bring today that's going to be way out there? And I wanted to take a second to go through this with people to help them understand. Now, this is something that he did, and I just want to actually show for people to really realize, like, there are no excuses in life when people say, it takes me forever to do all this stuff in life. John Dee wrote this book in, I think it was, 13 days? 12 days. To whom God gave the will and the ability to record this divine mystery in a written memorial and to complete these labors peacefully on January 25th, has begun on the 13th day of the same. So in 12 days in the year 1564. So if in 1564, if he could write all this out, draw all these parts to his hieroglyphic monad and give his whole reasonings behind it in 12 days, and you're still having troubles in your life getting shit done, I don't really know, you know what I mean? And he says something that I think is very relative to this time and this moment, which I believe he was precursing this exact moment. Following our 1 in 1,000 proportion, which was not rashly conceived. So what he means is that only about 1 in 1,000 people or 1 in 1,000 souls will really ever get it. But when you actually move it into the actual truth, we ought to expect that this unique and most fortuitous specimen is 1 in a million among philosophers, or 1 in 1,000 million men. 1 in 1,000 million. Well, that's kind of interesting. That's 1 in a billion. Of the common sort. I think that's 1 in a billion. I'd have to do that math in my head. That one's kind of a weird one. 1 in 1,000 million? I'm going to do that really quick. $1 million. It's 1 E9. I'll get back to that in a minute. That's pretty crazy. To demonstrate this rarity, we present the hieroglyphic figure of a letter called Pythagorean. If your excellency studies it with great attention, still greater mysteries will present themselves for your consideration, shown in this way from our cosmopolitical theories. This is, if we understand the matrix and the false reality that people are stuck in, it is an abyss. Okay, I'm going to hold on 1 second here. And this is how you're going to avoid agents in your life. And honestly, in your own self, I would say that even in your own self, making sure that you're really awake to make these decisions in your life. And if you really are there, you know, we always hear about, especially in the spiritual community, the tree of life. No, it's more like the tree of rarity, that most people don't live their life. It's very rare to live your life. Most people just live and die and don't really do the work or don't connect to a higher realm and don't actually create something that inspires others or tries to wake them up in a major way or contributes something from spirit that has never been seen before or takes it to the next level. It's extremely rare. It's not something that, you know, I know there's a lot of people in the spiritual community and so forth, but, you know, what are you doing that's unique and different? Like for me, I've created Hypergate Astrology. And that's something that, of course, is a school of mine. As I'm working on the work over the years to bring it to the greater astrology community to help understand. It's so off the beaten path of astrology, yet so connected to it that it's going to take me years to continue to keep bringing out Hypergate. But I was inspired by this and this hieroglyphic the most, because it was this one and what he did being an astrologer that really showed me, if you think of the last 2 years of this crazy pandemic, the way that people have been stuck in the mass psychosis, and also like how to get through your life at every moment to make sure that you're on the true spiritual path, which we're going to get to here in a second. Because really, if you're not on the spiritual path, you're a tyrant to God. So even what he says here, and I like John Dee because he kind of reminds me a lot of how I am. I'm pretty hardcore. Meaning that, you know, I kind of feel like, you know, if you're not spiritual and you don't get it, or you're not here to like go on that path, like you're basically just ending up in the abyss, like bye-bye. And I know that that's kind of a hard concept because there's so many people in religion and the way Christianity is, and everybody goes to heaven and everybody has a good time and I'm not saying you're going to hell. I'm just saying that like at the end of your life, there is kind of a moment there where I guess if you understand Hermeticism, that you do reach the ethereal and you do get to go to this space to the highest above the super celestial of life, which might even be a concept that you probably don't even understand. But there's something to say about, it's very rare. And it's weird for me when this is over, you know, this is almost 500 years ago. And this concept of, let's say 1 in a million, but he goes in even more than that, that there's just very little people who will actually get this in life. That most people are just asleep. Most people are not awake. Most people will not do the work. Most people will find every excuse and live in their anxiety, will live and accept the deception, and be so stuck in this abyss, this vice, like the vices they have, which are the vices that were created by the deceptive world and the anxieties that they're worried about from the deceptive world. And it's interesting that he puts Earth here as the element for that, which of course, it is Taurus, it is Virgo, it is Capricorn, right? Where you do get these interesting elements about this physical reality. The vice, of course, being that Taurus energy, that deception, which 100% is the Capricorn, how the structures are set up, and the anxiety of the Virgo, where you're just worried about trying to do the right thing, trying to be the humble person that's just living their life, but really in the system. If you look at the other three elements, they're on the spiritual side: water, the emotional, air, and then fire. Now, when you're born into this matrix, by the time you reach about 7 years old here in your first Saturn return is when finally you start to see that you're not like a little baby kid anymore. It's like you're starting to read books and you're starting to have to do book reports and shit like that, if I took it in today's culture. But even then, that Saturn return or the Saturn square definitely, that first one definitely gets you going to be like, okay, you're definitely not this little kid thing anymore. You're still a little kid, but you're definitely not. You're on your way to puberty, which ironically is 14. And so there's a lot of indoctrination that goes in here. If you notice that he separates words, and I don't know if I'm going to break down his whole entire work tonight, but I just really want to let you know that there's a lot to understanding the separations in life and understanding how to get through this life, or even looking at there are two sides of the fence here. And I'll get to that. So here we are. We get to this adolescence. Sense on the side that's good and adolescence on the other. And this is really when you get out of high school and so forth. This is your North Node return that happens in your Jupiter opposition. So when we all get out of high school at 18 years old and 19, it's a weird moment because the only way to really get to this big moment at 28 when the Saturn return happens, where you either make your choice to go down the right road or you don't. And that's why, I'm not going to say I'm so fatalistic in the sense that this is the only path or the only way things work. But there is something to say that if you haven't pretty much got the concepts of life by the time you're 28, and you're never going to really embed it into your life, when you try and do it older, there's always, there's always something about people that get into that older age that have troubles actually like making it happen, that they weren't really doing it in their younger years and they didn't make that big choice on their Saturn return. But it's right here. The indoctrination is all like through this period right here, especially because I don't think that people realize that North Node return at 19 years old, they have to remember you're going into your Jupiter opposition, right? Jupiter's a 12-year cycle. So when you're 18 and you get out of high school, you're in Jupiter opposition. You had your Jupiter return at 12, and then what happens? Boom. Jupiter's opposing Jupiter. And then here's this North Node. So it's like, what do we do? Well, I feel like I should go learn. My mom wants me to go to school. That's like the weirdest moment. I can't believe that people go to college at 18 in their Jupiter opposition. It's like, there's other roads. There's other roads. But I think it's so funny that the way the matrix works, we don't want you to see other roads. We just want to keep you in adolescence so you just stay on the earth thing. And because what? You go to school so you can have a job, right? Maybe it's just because my chart or how my Jupiter is in Capricorn and I fucking, Jupiter in Capricorn kind of is the only lifesaver when it comes to like, I'm not going to fucking follow the system. Believe it or not, Jupiter in Capricorn is the rule breaker of the system. So, my Jupiter opposition in Cancer was like, yeah, fucking, I want to go see what makes me happy. I don't want to fucking follow this system bullshit. And I ended up in the military and then got kicked out. But long story short, when you're thinking about agents out there or people in your life, it's easy to start to see on how you start using astrology and you can start using these tools to understand, hey, what were they at, what were they like at 7? What were they like at 14? Now, those are ages where weird stuff happens depending on their chart. But really, by the time, it's like, what was the, that's always the story that you hear from people. So what did you do out of high school? Or what did you do when you turned 18? That's like kind of where we always like start the story as adults, which is kind of weird when we're not even fully there yet. It's really interesting to me to hear where people go and how programmed they are based off that notion that were they just an adolescent, where it's like, that whole idea that like parents are like, oh, they're still my adolescent, they're an adolescent, they're not good enough in the system yet. We need to push them through the system. Which that system, I hate to say, because you get your big option here, which is kind of ironic to me, right? Because you would think, okay, so Jupiter opposition is at 18, and then at 24, right, is when we get, oh man, that's a little too thick. At 24, that's where we get to that big moment there, right? We get to this huge moment in our life where it's like, you know what, I'm gonna go see what my options are in life. By the time I was 20 and 21 coming into that, I was doing astrology, I was reading tarot, I was fucking full lit up, okay? So for me, when I had that Jupiter return at 24, that's when I rocket shipped. I came out in the world as a celebrity astrologer on ABC, literally at 24 years old. And so for me, it was really easy to make this turn because I was already on that turn. Because I followed my North Node and it was like I never followed the system. I really never did. Like the system was always something that I fucking just despised as a child, as a teenager especially. My mom was so terrified of me in high school. The police, calling because I was smoking weed, because I had cigarettes, I got in trouble from doing this or that. I didn't care about the system as much. And again, maybe that's fate here. Maybe some people chose their life to go enter into the pod. Which, to be honest, I love how he uses the word tyrant. Because you're a spiritual tyrant is what you are. They're interchangeable, okay? But 28 years old, the Saturn return. That's the big thing here. That this is where I'm going to get into agents. Are you even worthy of even having the title to be worried about an agent? Because you're already an agent. Because you didn't choose the spiritual path fully at your Saturn return. And that you are an agent. I don't think it's ironic that 87,000 IRS agents that are going to be armed, and the videos just started coming out today of them showing them, being trained with weapons already, and that even before the bill just passed and that the president just signed it, they already had the ad out with agents. Although, taking this concept in, and I'm an optimist, so I'm somebody who believes that, John Dee is 100% correct, but I also believe that he also left a lot of his great work for those to help break this system apart. It's kind of interesting to me when you think of Dolores Cannon and her splitting of the earth. So like, let's take a second here and let's do this split earth, right? And we'll take some images here of like new earth. It's so weird how they're getting rid of that image a lot lately. Man, they really don't like to show that one no more. They don't like to show the original one. I'm sure there's some OG spiritual gangsters up in here that know what I'm referring to here. Wow. They really got to use DuckDuckGo? Like, you can take it off real quick. I really feel like we're at such a moment that's so extreme about this splitting. We can feel it everywhere. You can feel it everywhere in your life. You can feel it in politics. You can feel it in your family. You can feel it in your relationships. You can feel it in the way the world's working. You can feel it in the way that your relationship with Earth is now. You can feel it in the way that it is in every cornerstone of your life. It's not a joke. And so, are you already able to be taken over by the system to be an agent and you don't even realize it? Oh, thank God for fucking DuckDuckGo. Jeez, they've gotten rid of this on Google. I typed in newer split and it popped right up. So here we go. Is there a bigger one I can do? That's the only one left, huh? Man, I'm going to save that motherfucker. Here we go. I'm saving that. Add to photos. Thank you. So, you know, a lot of us that were doing this work back in 2010, and I remember trying to get a past life regression with Dolores Cannon, and she was not feeling well at the time, and I actually had an email exchange with her, and I said, no worries, and she goes, and it's weird, she just told me, I already know you get it, don't worry. I'm like, oh, okay, and then she passed away. It was really gnarly. But it's the same split. It's the same split. Now, 2012, of course, being the galactic, this is literally when things started to feel real weird. This is when CERN came out, but mainly it's the galactic Mayan calendar, the great grand cycle of the Mayan system reset. And that's a galactic system. And I've done plenty of videos on that. I've done plenty, watching my YouTube for hours, and you literally go through all my lectures over the last decade and yada, yada, yada. I've talked about that a lot. But that's really when you, something's different here. But I guess if you've been an agent, you would have thought nothing changed. Just going to call it out. So here we are, this 2020 and this big split. And I really do believe this 2020. And of course, this is also referring to the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that we had. It's referring to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction we had. It's referring to the Pluto-Jupiter trice cycle that we had that year. Okay? So at that period, you have a cycle we hadn't seen since 1284. You have a cycle that's a 20-year cycle, right? But it was starting a new air sign, Jupiter-Saturn cycle. And then you had Jupiter and Pluto 3x conjunction, which that hadn't happened since the 50s in Leo, where we saw Jupiter and Pluto meet 3 times in conjunction. And that was the beginning of airline travel for common people. And I told people that airline travel was going to go to shit in a handbag, and we weren't going to see a world with airline travel the same way ever again. So when you had those major aspects happening and the Venus cycle doing a Venus retrograde that happened, there was people who chose, I'm not going to get this shot. I'm not going to follow the system. And look at the numbers. 78% of people followed it. So already, John Dee's already working out pretty good with his stats out of, geez. If I were to take right now, and if I were to do, on my calculator here, and if we were to take, there's 300 and, I don't even know what it is now, 350 million Americans. And we times that by 0.78, right? That's 273 million out of 350 million Americans who fell for the system and the 3D Earth. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. And that continued to keep following it in 2021 and to continue to keep following it even into now. Continue to follow it in all the systems that are holding them back right now, from love and happiness and this new higher frequency. It blows my mind that it's still happening. And it's happening in all the weirdest of ways, because they created also in that moment a place of isolation, which I'm going to show you that John Dee calls out. In a place where you're too afraid to truly emotionally connect, and you're going to let all your wounds and all your past and all that stuff be something that you continue to hold on to, instead of knowing how to move through it and move into this. You think that God's rolling out a red carpet where you can bring your 3D crap to the 5D? No. So the idea, like, I need to get rid of my 3D shit is like, I'm going to stay in 3D. I'm going to stay there. It's just the moment when you jump out and go, I'm not fucking doing that shit, which is like any of us who, even if you're listening to this video, you've probably already done massive jumps over the fence to even get to these concepts. So it's kind of ridiculous at this point. Anybody at this point going, I'm just going to keep being a tyrant. I'm just going to stay being a tyrant. It's really nice living in the void and especially in the abyss. So we'll come back to that here in a second. But where was I? Oh, I was on. Here we go. So how do you avoid an agent if you are awake? I'll go there first, and then I'll come back to if you are an agent. If you made your choice in your life and you chose that same split, ironically enough, even in that image, this would be the 5D Earth and this would be the 3D, okay? And you end up in the abyss. It's just going to an abyss that's going to just do a black hole and turn itself back out and redo itself again in crazy timelines that are just repeating itself all over again. I hate to say it. Look at that, 56 years old. It's kind of crazy how many people especially have been deceived from this 35 to 56 that have died by the what. Isn't that interesting? Look at the numbers too. When he talks about, I guess in his mind, it would be that 1,000 million, right? Because we put some zeros on this. The billion. Back on the planet, back in 1564. That was like a crazy number. That was like, one day the Earth will have 1 billion people. There wasn't 1 billion people back then. I'm pretty sure. What was the population of Earth? To get the numbers correct, you have to do that kind of stuff. Population of Earth in 1564. About half a billion. That's not a lot of people. 500 million people on the planet at that time. And just in America, 270 million people fell for the deception, fell for the system. And maybe that's the way to kind of have your last jump to break off into this new place. But if you're somebody who's been aware and you understand who you are, especially here at 35 into 36, that's an important moment. That's also your Jupiter return again, your North Node return, but with Jupiter return, not Jupiter opposition. And that's where you literally, and I get the idea of hypergating, you literally go to this other side and you are literally in the highest fire. You're in your true soul. You're intellectual enough to see through things, the true wise man. And the numbers keep going down here, but they go to 1, where you find the connection to the divine one, the sacred there's only one vibration. It's not only just you, but it's that sacred symbol of oneness, that sacredness of oneness. And that you know how to adapt. You're not afraid of when even these IRS agents come out, or when all these things, you got to still contribute and you still got to do your shit, but you're able to adapt and you're able to understand how to stay in the spiritual world and to do the mission. And you're not going to be dumb enough to fall for these spells and have your vice. Well, I want to travel. Why do you think I did Purgatory all last year? It's on Rumble. And if anybody out there has any doubts that I haven't called all this shit out, go watch that fucking lecture. Number one's excuses that I've heard of people falling for the spell are these vices and the deception. I want to travel. My job. Oh, I have to keep your job for your shitty life that you don't want? I want to be able to go out into clubs or to concerts or sports events. Oh, I need it so I can keep money. Oh, there's lots of different ways to have money. These are all the vices that Taurus represents. And it's the earth sign energy itself that we have to live in. But it's whether or not you're adapting on bringing in your true soul energy and bringing that in like the Matrix. If I were to draw this out, right? If this was the Matrix and this is the real world, right? As a human, you plug yourself into that computer system and you hypergate in, and then you go through the Matrix and then you come back out to your real self. That's what we're doing right now. This is it literally spiritually, because you understand and you can cross your oneness into these two different zones here. The adaptable one, where it's like you know how to continue to evolve your soul, but also bring it back to the divine and God, to the spiritual always. But here you're just a number that keeps dwindling to nothing. And what's that number that it turns into? Not 1, but 0. And I think it's ironic because, in the military, we're not allowed to say O for 0. Like that's fucking like the worst thing that you could do on the planet, because that could kill a bunch of people if the coordinates are wrong for the nuclear codes, if the codes are wrong for this or for that. But also the other way to do 0 in the military is like this. You're done. It's like a cell that's been cut in half and not whole. Well, what do you think that fucking juice that they gave everybody does? You think it makes it whole? Every worker that gave anybody any of those shots, any of the fucking doctors that did, they're all agents. They're all agents. I don't know how many. I forgot, was it our show, Brian? I forgot what show it was. But I was doing a show recently and it was like, I think it was you, Brian. There's this dad who recorded a CVS worker. Yeah, and the kid had a bad reaction and all that. I think started going into like, what was it? Not breathing or something crazy? Oh, he got myocarditis, yeah, and he was young. And he went back to CVS and got on recording and said, hey, you didn't warn us about any of this. You told us some of the warnings, but you didn't tell us any of this shit. And they just looked at him and said, well, you probably wouldn't have got it unless we would have told you that. We're told not to tell people that because it keeps people hesitant from getting it. If that's not agent energy, I don't know what is. So when it comes to your personal life, I mean, I hate to say it, but there's only a very few little of us out there that are actually doing this fully. That fully understand that fire, because it's the ether to connect to spirit. It's the ether to connect to spirit. There's a difference between soul and spirit. Spirit is the connection of God, spirit. Soul is your soul and how it connects to spirit, and it is one with spirit. But there's even people here with souls that are not connected. So it's kind of a sad story, because you have souls here, right? And you have spirit. And it's really about how do you bring both together, right? And the real way to live life is to be a spiritual tyrant, not a tyrant to spirituality. That the spiritual tyrant is the one that actually makes it through and gets to God because it's going against the system. And it always has been. You know, I have an old book from 1712 in French. It's apologies of the great, horrible things done to people of magic. It's in French, Old English or Old French. It's from 1712, and there's a chapter in there that goes into Merlin. I'm not kidding. 1712. So, I'm going to trust 1712 authors and people bringing that knowledge down, right? Or I even trust my books from the 1600s about why the Catholic Church was so bad from the English point of view and why they had the schism. Because the people that were on the courts of Henry VIII, the people that were on the courts even prior, just kept recording all the horrible atrocities that the papacy was doing. And you won't find that shit on Wikipedia. You won't find that shit on the internet. I have to go buy the books from the 1600s to get it. The oldest books that I can buy right now is I think the oldest book I can get is probably around 1400. It's really hard to get a book from the 1300s or anything like that if it's even survived. So somehow the ones that are the spiritual tyrants always get through. Because you don't end up being a zero. You end up being in the oneness. But very few will get there. And I think what the hardest part for people right now, and I've been saying this recently, here's another word, another way of looking at it. But, you do have this split happening. I don't actually like that one. It's so stupid. Where'd the other one go? I can load it up on my here, right here. Oh, yeah, here we go. So, now this might trigger people. But as the split's happening, and we see the same split, this is going to be very visual and audio. You have billions of souls stuck on this right now. It's already happened. Let's not deny that it's already happened. It's already split. And now we're already here in 2022, right? So just add okay? Now we're going to get off the graph coming into 2023 and 2024 and go off the page, okay? But we're already so far away. But you have billions of souls here, and it's the cries from their pods. Come back. And making you feel bad. No, maybe. There's not a lot of us here. Come back. Using all the same vices, guilt, shame. You're a horrible person. You didn't follow the system. I still can't heal my traumas. I gotta still, I can't go do my great spiritual work because I'm in a trauma. I can't go into great love and happiness and all the great things that that you guys have over there on that 5D because I just want to sit in my shit. I just want to. I don't believe in divine anything. I don't believe in divinity fully. I mean, I like watching a tarot card reading on YouTube once in a while, but I'm just gonna still stay in that fucking 3D fucking bullshit. I'm just gonna stay there as long as I fucking can. But I'm gonna cry out. And so the agents, you have to remember from the Matrix, because I think it's the best way to ever put it, because it's deception. Once you've made it onto that line, right? Can I add that on here? You know, I do have a Hypergate album on here. I do. Yep. So once you've made it over here, right? You are part of the deception. You are in the deception, and you are to be used by the tyrants of God to be deceptive. That's where your feelings of anxiety come from, and the vices you're attached to, and the abyss that you feel like you're in. And even if you understand Dante's work in Purgatory, it's purgatory. You don't know you're in hell yet. Still feel like that you could reach this heaven, but you're stuck somewhere in between. And that's all the work that I did last year was Dante's work because it's so connected to 1284, which happened to be the year that Dante had his North Node return and his Jupiter opposition. And he was literally, from another book I got from 1888, about Dante's work that was done by a reverend named Reverend Henry Christmas, who it wasn't allowed to be published in the early 1800s because it went against the religious order. Because what he did was he said, you know what? And I have the book. He went, oh, I'm gonna take the events of Dante's life and I'm gonna actually go through the years and what he was going through. And I was like, damn. So I started looking in the order, and then he connects the events that have happened in his life to Inferno, which is hell, part of Dante's Divine Comedy, Purgatory, or Paradiso, which is heaven. Well, when you get to 1284, motherfucker's 19. Motherfucker starts getting all the downloads to do fucking and make this Divine Comedy. Motherfucker's going through the experiences at the same time with all that Capricorn in his chart, fucking his North Node in Capricorn and Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, just like it was in 2020, and realizing that the system's fucked up and the vices are bad and the seven sins, and we get all that from Dante. And it blew my mind that so many people just didn't see the purgatory that they got sucked up into, which is kind of on a crazier scale. Because if you think of this 5D, 3D Earth thing, the 3D Earth is purgatory. I mean, if I were to even show you this, you'll be interested when you see this right now. Like, and you understand where I'm gonna go. Like, here's Archangel Michael. These are people in purgatory. Right? To get pulled out. Right? That time when that comes, whew, that's a long ways away with all the people that are up in the 5D. That when they finally have got the energy and they finally have all come together and they finally come in their divine unions, they've finally come into their true happiness, they finally came into their true ethereal energy, then they can all come down as a team with Archangel Michael and help assist to pull the people, and not everybody, but as many people as they can get out as possible that are awake enough to be like, please get me out of here. I am so sorry. I am so dumb. I cannot believe I fell for the deception. I can't believe I was a tyrant to God. I can't believe I was a tyrant. I can't believe I used my intellect. And that's what the tyrant is the intellect, right? Like, oh, well, the news is telling me this, or, the system's telling me this, or my mom or dad are telling me I must go to college and do this, or, I have to do this, or I got to stay with this person I don't like, or I got to keep staying in this trauma, or I got to keep holding on to this story, or I got to get... That's you. But when I take you down, I guess, deeper down the rabbit hole, oh, here, yeah, it's in this album right here. Oh, good thing I have so many of these. So, this is where you're at in purgatory. You have this idea that you're on earth, that you're in everything. When really, you're actually in the bubble that's surrounding hell. Right? And you have no way real out, right? And what's crazy is then you realize that how deep hell goes in Earth's center. And to even try and get up out of hell again is literally hell. Okay? To even try to get even back out. Okay? Like, very, very, very difficult. And I think it's funny that the angelic and the angels are aligned with the energy of the ones that have the courage, the animals that have the courage, the animals that have the ability to actually say, you know what, I'm not doing that, and I'm on my own. I'm not going to go do what you all are doing, and nobody messes with those animals. They're cunning, they're fast, they're smart, and you don't mess with them. Yet that's the spiritual ones. Not the fucking ones that are just down here. I'm so spiritual because I'm complacent. I'll do whatever you want me to do. That's you serving the devil. I hate to tell you that. But that's really what you're doing. And they're all hypocrites. They're all weird sorcerers too that are not true and divine sorcerers because they're not with God. I think it's interesting when you look at some of this stuff, panders and seducers. There's so many things, and this isn't even the purgatory stuff, right? That's just like the inferno stuff. That's where people are headed in that abyss. It literally is an abyss that takes you under. It's not like something that, just kind of out of nowhere, just, you go, oh, okay, fucking, I guess didn't work out that life. I guess I fell for the spell, and I guess, I don't know, that's what I'll do. The only way out, which I've shown in many lectures, but it's a good reminder of how to stay away from agents right now that are going to try and pull you out, because the only way to the higher realms, and these are, and this is again taken from John Dee's work, right? Okay. These spherical realms. So you have the celestial, you have the super celestial, and then you have from where God created things, which would be what the idea of 5D would be. If this would be 3D, right? This would be 4D, right? And then this would be 5D. And then really, it would be this higher realm, which wouldn't have even a description because you would be beyond space, time, and matter. You'd be beyond dimensions. You'd be beyond there. And that's really where we're going. So there is this idea that once you get here, furthest in the material heavens, time, space, nature begin here. So you understand space, time. You understand the divine nature of things. That's really what 5D is. The 4D is the weird dimension when we look up at the stars and you understand where to go when you're in your 3D and you contemplate with the ladder of contemplation and you actually jump out. and jump into that life fully. But then you have to make that other jump where you come into this and you break through, which I showed with Dylan on another show recently on another Hermetic understanding. And ironically, all during 2020, 2021, and 2022, this is where the North Node has been moving with the eclipses. This is the constellation of Gemini Dante stars. There's the North Star. Well, yeah, even back then in Cancer. This is Gemini. And then here's Taurus, right? The eighth heaven of constellations, faith, hope, love. This is where we're at now. I hate to say it. People last year, that was your choice. That was your choice. You contemplated to stay. And what's that last jump? The seventh heaven of Saturn. I'm going to stay moderate. I'm going to not pick a side, and I'm not going to pick a side of the divine. I'm going to pick the side where I'm going to stay just moderate and just live my life and be normal and follow what everybody else is doing. And so those that made this jump, this is where it's got to be now. Faith, hope, love. Like, we got to have the faith and the hope and the love that we're going to be able to get all them out. But we got to do that through those things. And you could like reverse this out, because just even to get out of the purgatory energy, these people that are stuck there have to do it on their own just to get up to that place to where is Gemini? That's literally, in the stars of it, is where Archangel Michael sits. Right now, it's at 10 degrees for Aldebaran, right? So if you think of that being, let's call this 10, which in John Dee's work, I can't break down the whole fucking thing right now, but he only says that 1 and 10 are the only numbers to even think about, and 5, that's it. Just like work in 5s. But that's the only nature there is ones and zeros. But you think of the opposite of that, which is Antares, which is at 10 now Sag. And that's where the nodes were, and that's where the eclipses were in 2021. Right in the middle, when they were fucking juicing people up at the middle of the fucking most, and that's what I was screaming at the top of my lungs for people to do it, to get out of this shit and don't follow this and just don't contemplate. And that's where the problem is right now with people. It's a long journey ahead. You know why? I'm going to add a different color here, and I'll keep my drawings, but Mars is going to literally, if we were to say this is Taurus and that's Gemini to Cancer, right? So Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, right? So here's Mars right now. And Mars is going to retrograde right here at 25 of Gemini and come back to 8 of Gemini. And this is an understanding, especially whether it's traditional or medieval astrology. Mars is the activator of eclipse realms, okay? So it's been 2 years since Mars was in Gemini. The last 2 years has been fucking crazy. And those eclipses were intense in Gemini and Sag. Did you jump the ladder? Or are you still in a world of contemplation? I'm going to contemplate the hate, the faith, love, and hope that I really know that I have to be living in my life fully. And not any excuse to not have faith, any excuse to not have hope, any excuse to not have love is being a tyrant. And that you're just sitting in contemplation and you're just sitting. You're not out of purgatory till you get out and you jump the ladder. So if I had to erase this, you don't get out. I don't know what to tell people. You don't get out. There is no out. There is no out. There is just you are either in or out. And part of the title of this video is the long journey ahead, but the long curious journey. Is it going to be a curious journey of the most amazing love, hope, and faith and happiness? And the eighth heaven and the heavens and experiencing the heavens. Even the Pleiades system sits right here, right where the ladder of contemplation is, the cluster at 0 Gemini, which is where this weekend Mars goes. Ooh. And that's where the solar eclipse with the south node was in 2012. 0 Gemini on the Pleiades. Exact. And if we go back to our new Earth stuff here, that's exactly the moment when that split was the most important. Because after that 2012, we saw no more Earth anymore. It started to feel crazy in 2013. And that was the North Node Saturn in Scorpio. That was the truth being revealed. And I remember feeling this split like crazy. I thought I was going insane. And that was my Saturn return, my option. And boy, picking that path during 2013, people thought I was crazy. Fuck that. Thank God I got a fucking Hostess zinger for this shit. Jeez. Not much of a Twinkie guy because they don't put icing on it. At least they put icing on a zinger. Man. So this Mars retrograde is pretty damn serious because it is an activator and it's the only way that can clear the energy of those eclipse cycles. But also, the last time that Mars retrograded throughout all of Gemini was in 1943 into 44 at the end of the year. October of 43 into January of 44. Well, shit. So that means that the Venus, the transit of Venus is what it literally is called, where Venus eclipses the sun of 2004 and 2012, is going to be activated. Along with the eclipse cycle of 2020 and 2021, as also the Venus retrograde that happened. So now there's no more major retrogrades that are going to come through here until we get Uranus, of course, which that's probably, and that's always with world wars and where it's so bad. But, you know, there's something to say about this crazy long journey ahead is going to be the one where there's going to be, they're already in it, but you're going to feel it for the first time in your life if you're not fully already aware of it, where you're probably already feeling the weirdness now that there is two complete different Earths happening. And there is one that's in, you can call 5D, I call it new frequency, and there's one that's staying on the old frequency. I like that a lot better because I think people get lost in the whole dimension thing, because then when you get up to the higher parts, there is beyond space, time, matter, and 5D, 4D, 5D. The idea of a dimension is a time thing. When you're making love, are you looking at your watch? No. If anything, the only time if you're truly in love energy in anything you're doing creatively, a relationship or anything, is you're looking only at your watch and be like, I don't want it to end. So the idea, well, I can't go create what I want. I can't go have the life I want. I can't go do the things I want. I can't be in a love relationship I want. I can't do anything that I was saying. And because you're still attached to the time where you keep looking at the watch of why you can't have love. And of course, Siri, you don't, because you don't even understand love, bitch. There's going to be a long journey where people are going to be, and I've warned about this for years. I said by the end of 2022, it's going to be so crazy and catastrophic of this realization. How many people did not do it? How many people that even, it don't, and like I've said, it doesn't matter if you had the shot or not. Just how many people are choosing to not stay here and keep wanting to find a way to come back and go through all that spherical and stay in that sphere and stay in that craziness. Why do you think all the pyramids and stuff all point up to true stellar north and the North Star? It's weird that they have Jerusalem here at 32 degrees north. And where do they point that? The eclipses that are coming this fall. The end of the game. As the North Node will be at the earlier parts of Taurus, Scorpio, and even the solar eclipse in Scorpio, it's going to be at 2 degrees with Venus conjunct it, happening at the end of the page. Everywhere I look, we're at the end of the pages. Whether it's the 5D Earth, whether it's me using this Dante's work, whether it's this Inferno, and we're at the end of the page where this whole purgatory is about to drop people actually into a bigger understanding of this Inferno, that's a wider view of it, and drop people in to the bottom and realize where they're at and have to come all the way back up, then get back into purgatory, and then finally get out. That's a while away if you're in that space. Or it might not even happen. I mean, this is a night. I love Archangel Michael, and I'm extremely connected to him, and I have been for a long time in all of the work, and as God's military commander. That's literally what Archangel Michael is, God's military commander. But this is no joke anymore. Nobody's updated this shit. And I'm updating it for you right now. I'm telling you, we're here now. We're here now. We're going off the page. We're going off the page even here. Interesting split to see that once we get finally to this zone, it's like you're in the spiritual or you're in the tyrant. So that earth, that old frequency is going into a tyrant abyss. And the ability to move in and out of worlds is when you understand the sacred symbol of oneness, or just sacred oneness, and that you live it. It's very rare. So it's one thing to understand it. It's another thing to live it, which is rare, because it's a tree of rarity, which actually is just another form of life. That the tree of life is rare, that you don't grow a tree that could actually understand both and know how to get and grow a true spiritual experience in life that's connected to the divine and doing it fully in your life. And that's what you live your whole life as. Because there's philosophers out there, there's wise men, but really at the end of the day, it's God, the one, the only one that is the ultimate wisest energy. It's beyond wise. It's one. It's the fire. It's the ether. It gives you the fire in your life. You know, it was weird. Right before I went to bed last night, I was watching fucking Titanic. I don't know why. Just because it has come up so much for me lately. And I was watching Titanic. And it's a scene where Jack, you know, and Rose, they had a great night. They danced. They got drunk. And he tries to go back up to see her, and they're like, no, you're a third-class citizen. You got to go back downstairs. And that's when they're starting to realize something's up, so they're trying to have it avoid. So he goes up on the deck, and he goes to see Rose, and he pulls her to the side, and he tells her how amazing she is. And she's like, no, I'm going to go back to I'm engaged. I'm going to stay with this fucking piece of shit who just, that morning, remember, he fucking screamed at her and said, you better be obedient. He was fucking, what's that fool's name? Fucking, huh? Andrew Tate. she's engaged to Andrew Tate. You better obey and act like fucking, we're not married yet, but you better act like fucking, I'm your fucking husband, and you better treat me that way. It's a horrible scene. And then he breaks all the fucking teacups, and she freaks out. Anyway, that scene where Jack says all that, and the one thing that he says is, he says, yeah, you might go do that, but you're not going to be living, and it's going to steal, and all those people have you trapped. They have you trapped, and you're going to lose that fire. And I know you're tough, and I know you're strong, and I know you'll survive, but for how long? Because that fire in yours is strong, but they will take it all, and they'll suck the air the intellect that they're trying to tell you how to live. They'll suck the fire of your connection to the divine God, because you'll lose it, because you'll be being taken away into the vice. You'll be taken away into it all. Now, those aren't his words. These are mine mixing in. And then messing, because you're not living your emotional true happiness. You're going to just keep living in hell. You're just going to keep living in, especially with the South Node Scorpio. Like, if you're just living your emotional world in a Scorpio world, like, I can't let go of hard things. I just got to stay in the shit. Blah, blah. Like, fucking, you're fucked. You ain't going nowhere except down the tubes. And so that's when Jack goes to the front of the bow of the boat. And that's when she goes, Jack, I changed my mind. She jumped over the ladder of contemplation. And she stepped in with him. Now, of course, the boat, that's a different story. That's where everybody that's on this fucking 3D Earth is going, into the abyss, right? Hitting the iceberg. Oh, it's the fastest boat. I've built you a boat that's so, I forgot how he says. He goes, I built you a boat where it's so good. It is your lifeboat. Yeah. The same way that people are so confident right now that they're going to the right place, that they know what's really going on, that they do all that shit. Are you sure? Is that what all the agents keep telling you? Because it doesn't look like it goes too well at all. Now, I'm going to finish with one last thing here, and then I'm going to go into some of this Mars stuff and then close the show. But one thing about the hieroglyphic monad itself, oh geez, here we go. Oh man, they don't like me right now. All right. Is the proportion. Is our cross is made from 4, as it were, linear surfaces whose width is about 1/5 to 1/4 length AB. So the cross is so important to understand. We see a lot of the Jesus crosses out there that aren't actually perfect, and he goes really deep into this, right? That's why you see the Knights Templar with a different cross. That's why you see a different cross too, right? Like they tried to, don't see this, and it's not mathematically correct. But to see this, it's so important to understand the math behind stuff. Which of course I go through in my schools. Because you have to understand the Pythagorean math and different quaternary math here to understand the sum of the addition of all parts is and what's equal to different quaternary stuff. So I'm not going to get into that today, but we will get into this horizon of eternity. And of course I go way deeper into this in my schools. I just, you know what? This is it. This is a fated night. I'm doing this. It's a yod. Here, I'll just show you it. Why not? Let's move the edit chart to, oh wait, like here. We need 0 Aries. Sun at 25. There's the yod from the green lines where I'm drawing red. That's a sextile between Pluto and Neptune. Neptune in its home sign, Sun and Leo. This is a fated yod, finger of God moment, parting at your soul, your heart. This is Venus trine Jupiter. As we're talking, this is happening. This is it. This is the moon crossing the North Node and about to feel what it's like now that Uranus is done with that conjunction and Mars met with Uranus there. This is the first time the moon's coming back in Taurus and it's exalted. The sun's in its home sign, moon's exalted. This is very strong and potent energy with a Venus trine Jupiter and with a yod happening. Before this is going to never be able to happen again in your life, this yod. Next year, I mean, technically, yeah. But it's going to be with Venus retrograde. Not Venus trine Jupiter. So, you're not getting a fated moment like this again. Okay? All right, there we go. So, you have to understand when I bring up the understanding of these realms or spheres. So you have the terrestrial, okay? That's Earth, or the understanding of whatever the fuck it is we're here sitting on. Then there's the etheric and the celestial. So the understanding is the ethereal is the understanding of how you connect your terrestrial life to the celestial is etheric, meaning I'm an ethereal being because I understand the celestial energies that are above and how they connect. And I showed you that also in the understanding of Dante's stars. Then there's the super celestial here, right? That's the energy of galactic consciousness and higher, and seeing how there's way more at play here than just the planet, right? There's way more at play here than just what's happening in our solar system, okay? Then there's, thus the world was created, and the energy that's outside of this. I hate to say it, but too many people don't know how to do the matrix in and out, or at least being able to understand by looking inside and then being on the horizon of eternity. It's another contemplation point that you have to jump. You have to jump. You can't just say, I'm gonna just keep working on my shit and I'll get there. You either jump or you don't. There's no more time left. It's kind of weird doing this show tonight because I literally said the last jump point is here. There's no more jump points. The shit show that is coming is beyond my comprehension because I'm not in that earth. I'm not in that frequency. I'm going to watch like that. But I am not sitting and still fragmented or stuck in the game. And this is where, the understanding of the realms come as the body, the spirit, and the soul. It's not the body, the mind, right? So it's like you see this all in the fitness community and spirituality. You see all this. People are so obsessed with what herb are you eating and what. Fuck that. The body is black and the earth is black. That's part of the deception. That nature and the greenery and all that shit is so good. It's connecting you more to the matrix. It's the house of the insects, not so much the fucking humans. Sorry to say. Every greenery you go into, you got to deal with insects everywhere, and they're everywhere with all their fucking eyes watching you and reporting back to fucking home base like, look at this fucking stupid one. The spirit, which it's white, right? We always think of connecting with God, the white, but it's two. It's the white mixed with the yellow. It's the sun, the etheric energy, that the soul, which is red, right? Like there's that soul of yourself that has to connect with spirit and the body in order to even understand all this energy and get where you're going to go, or you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to be able to connect to get the terrestrial to the etheric to the celestial. So people who think that they're woke or awake or whatever usually don't actually embody this. They usually are, I got to keep my mind, body, and soul. Oh, mind? There is no mind. The mind is the program, the computer chip. You have to completely erase your mind. And what does he even say in the Matrix? Or what does Morpheus say? I think the exact line is, he says, clear your mind. But really, in a computer terminology, that would mean like clear the whole fucking operating system out. But we live in a spiritual community that's under the spell and program for a long time too. And nobody has the balls to fucking say it. John Dee, though, did, but he didn't know how to describe it to people. So people in his schools, which is why I taught all this in school, is because, you know, it took me 4 hours to 5 hours each week for one session for 8 sessions just to go through all this work. And all the other work that I did was really crazy in it, but it was all connected with all these kind of understandings. Or even if you think about, right, like the understanding of the numbers, there's 1 through 9. And it's so weird. I just did that 1,000 times a million. And I got 1E9. 1 through 9. And understanding 9 would be here. Which, if we know from numerology, it comes from the planets, is the end. Which back arrives to a 1, which always arrives you back at the 1, which we see. But that the only way out is, you have to understand, right? 1. There's only a handful of people on Earth that understand the oneness on Earth. It's not the oneness with the trees. I hate to fucking be that person, but it's just fucking truth. It's just truth. It's just the bodies that are here embedded with spirit in the soul that understand the terrestrial, the celestial, the etheric, and the super celestial, and know how to step out of this realm into the horizon of eternity. Eternity. Right? And so this is where you get the numbers, right? To get to the horizon of time, which if we think of that horizon of time, which I showed you earlier, I'll clear this. The horizon of time is right here. At that ladder of contemplation, right? Because once you do that, then you finally, okay, you're here. You're in the crystalline energy, but that's not the highest energy. So you have to understand quite a lot to get there, and that's just at 1,000. And then you get to the horizon of time. Where this is where most people are at, and they get stuck. Because in order for you to actually get to the horizon of eternity, you could sit in the consummation. You could sit and consume and get stuck in that time where you're just like, I'm just going to stay on that side of that one side of Earth. Or you could go through the metamorphosis process, where this is where 5, Mercury, is the hermetic understanding of those energies and knowing how to bridge the understanding of multidimensional systems. And when you get to 6, when you get to 7, remember there's 7 planets, and then you get to this 8. And that's the loop. And this is actually a 10 in Roman. So 9, 10. You have to get to 10 if you follow his whole system, okay? And it's an emotional leap because 10 is water. It's one where you're a handful of people who are emotionally ready to take the leap, that understand it and that embody the soul of that for the fire that's in there, the passion that's in there, that go through the metamorphosis of breaking through, which again is the split. And where is that sitting? Man, I can't believe that fucking Wikipedia says nobody can crack this shit. Fucking retards. Fucking retards. The new Earth. The old Earth. 8. People obsessed with 8, have fun with the devil. Have fun with being stuck in that system. That's the old Earth way. And it's kind of funny, when we're birthed if we think about if I were to, I'll turn this to black. If you think of like this is the split, and then it's this line that comes down underneath here, we come in and we're kind of in this weird, we're just consummated here, right? And if we were to really think of like consummation, right? Like, the action of making a marriage or relationship complete by having sexual intercourse. Isn't that interesting? To give life. But I've been talking, and in that school, I talk so much deeply about how it's divine union's the only way to jump out of this. It's kind of interesting that it is a consummation between masculine and feminine to jump out into the horizon of eternity, but people are just too afraid. This is just too much of a metamorphosis that it's going to feel weird going through a metamorphosis. Because remember, this is where the deception is, the vice is, I'm in the anxiety, because you're too afraid to go into the consummation, right? The other side of this is where it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You shouldn't get lost in all these other numbers. You got to remember the understanding of the basics and just do that. And it's like you can get there. And this is breaking down the other side of that hieroglyphic that I showed you. But to mind blow you to the last level here, to mind blow you, I like to mind blow people. Of course, in my school, I go way deeper into this, but you know what I mean? No, well, yeah, let's save the photos. Okay. Okay. So we know this, right? Well, of course, I'm a crazy motherfucker. So I said, let's move it sideways. That's exactly what he shows, right? So there's that. Here, let's clear that. Damn. That was pretty easy for me to figure out. I can't believe, oh my God, the people of the sea, what'd they say? Fucking, oh my God, I got it. Like, what'd they say? Like, oh my God, I don't even have it on here, but I can go back. Oh, you know what? John Dee stuff I actually did here. Oh yeah, here we go. The work of esteem was esteemed by many of Dee's contemporaries, but cannot be interpreted today. Okay, all right. In the absence of the secret oral tradition of that era, that only people from that era will ever understand that shit. And even he said that shit. But unless you do the work of that era, then you'll never fucking get out. And you'll never understand shit. They tell it to you in your fucking face. They tell it to you in your fucking face. And you know what's funny? I've watched every YouTube video I can on this fucking, and none of these fucking, professors at these historical fucking, like that deal in magic and alchemy and shit. They don't even understand this shit. They don't even come close. They just go, oh yeah, that's what this is. And it was just like some weird little book off that he did to try and get the Holy Roman Emperor of Hungary to fucking take him in because Queen Elizabeth I wasn't down with the fucking whole astrology science, like crazy fucking magic shit that he was doing. Of course she wasn't. She's going to go create her, the idea of the new world order, that already happened. Are people stupid? Like John Dee told her of this great British Empire. And if you look everywhere and you even go through, whether it's India, you go everywhere in the world, you go through all the trading that went on, you go through all it, the New World Order was done during that time. John Dee knew people were going to be stuck in it. Even now. So, I just showed you this, and it was very simple for me to just go, okay. It was very simple for me to go, you know what? Let me look into this. Okay. So I know that, we have the X. Oh, that goes right through the point of the sun, exalted in Aries. Understanding who you are and having the courage to be it and break through the system. That was simple for me to do. The 8, where people get stuck. Oh, that was easy for me to do. Just looking at both of these, right? Like, these are elements. Because air is up here, right? Air, fire, and how we put the sun at the gateway out. Right? So if fire's here, no, well, it's got to be that earth. So 8, that people get stuck on that physical, tyrannical earth. They get stuck there. And it's kind of crazy because if we talk about the celestial and the greater, the one that God that thou created, right? If I were to take this right now and flip it and read you to what it says. He who does not understand should either learn or be silent. Stars. It's nice you know your co-star. It's even nicer when you know how to get to the other side outside of it. What does it say in the middle here? Mercury, when made perfect by a sharp, stable force, fire, point. This is all in the consummation, right? Cancer, Taurus. Cancer, Taurus, Venus, or Libra, which is relationships. Aries, Libra. They do Taurus to represent the bull of Venus. Because they got to use animals. They're not going to use a fucking scale. Sorry. And Taurus is the first Venus sign, and it is the exalted position of the moon and the home of Venus at its first go. So, of course, in consummation, it's Taurus, Cancer. Of course, in metamorphosis, it's Aries, Capricorn. To metamorphosis your identity out of the system and the control systems. Right? Because, I don't think I'm crazy. But anyway, so let's finish that. So Mercury, when made perfect by a sharp, stable point, becomes the parent and king. The parent. Oh, Taurus is the moon exalted and Cancer is the moon at home. The consummation. And it can metamorphosis into the king of all the planets and bring them all together. Because you have to be at a sharp, stable point. And that sharp, stable point, the only point is on the sun in Aries exalted. Your soul for your chart or understanding the divine. Is if you don't, and so anybody out there saying sun sign astrology is bullshit, you are a tyrant. Like literally, you're a tyrant. You're going off the rising sign? You're not going with all of it together? And there's the moon on the other side. But do you notice that the moon is trapped in the system of water and air? The emotional, intellectual thing is where we get stuck in our emotional, and that's, where the line comes up as a kid and a child. And it's interesting that he's got 4s around a sharp, stable. The only sharp and stable point in life is the ether. Period. It's not the earth. It's the most unstable place. You have no idea what the weather's going to be. That's happened throughout history. Go look at what they're trying to say for climate change right now, and go look at all the fucking data records. Go look at all the droughts and the famines and how many fucking crazy moments you've had in the geological fucking records, and that are all mixed with Saturn and Aquarius transits to fucking, I mean, it's insane, especially with the solar flares and all that shit. It's just ridiculous that the idea to control the earth, to control the climate, to control any of it is just fucking retarded. I hate to say it. It's the most retarded shit I've ever seen in my fucking life. It's retarded. But becomes the parent and the king. You must not be afraid to exit and to actually enter into the highest realm, into the eternal realms, and to get out of this fucking crazy fucking weird tyrannical fucking experience here, is you have to be a spiritual tyrant, and you have to be willing to do the metamorphosis here. To be a parent and to be a king is quite a lot. And most people don't have the ability to take that, which is why it takes courage. It takes knowing what you want and to go, not holding on. I need to do the work. I need to do the work to understand who I am, my soul. You are a tyrant. You are stuck in the vices. You're focused on what happened on earth. You're focused on how the most unstable place in the world, you're still going to continue being, I got to heal the most unstable place. Like, everybody goes through shit in this most unstable place. It's fucking unstable. Nobody goes through hell. Nobody goes through problems. Nobody goes through issues when you're connected with your soul and you follow that, and it's in the eternal and the happiness and the love. I'm sorry to say, there's zero excuses. None. You can just sit all day you want, fucking, and be like, be stuck with agents and be stuck with all the people that are just going to try and think like, what about the job? What about the money? What about that? What about this? What about this? What about your pain? What about this? Oh my God. It blows my mind that the only way to connect to both sides, is the rays of your soul and your sun to get out. And here, I'm going to clear this. What is sitting at the top is both Hermes, helmet, mercurial energy. And what is Mercury next to? Cancer, the moon, the sun, and Leo. So it becomes the parent, Cancer, and it becomes the king, which you don't see, because Leo, it would be this side, and Cancer would be this side. So it's the right side, the creative side. The analytical side is Cancer. So the crab that learns how to become the parent, and then you must know how to become a king too, or a queen. If you can't do either of those, and you're too afraid to do both of those, and you don't have the courage to be here and get out, right? See the water, the birds, the boat, the water, right? And that's what's interesting is the great deception. If you start the 1 here, like we saw earlier, and you saw the 8 here, right? That Earth is really a place of water. There's more water than Earth. So when people get all obsessed about the Earth, I'm so me and the Earth, we're the greenery. It's like, what about that 75% of water? You know what I mean? Like, what about that? No, I don't want to pay attention to that shit. So you already see how people are just retarded, and they're lost. Everybody's lost, and they don't understand these arts that go forever. And this comes from Genesis, that he puts at the foundation of 1 through 8. But mainly, what is it? It's outside of it. Because if we actually go, it took me a minute to kind of go, okay, I see. All right. with that horizon eternity and where to get out, and then we see the top and we understand how to get through that. You can go anywhere outside, right, of that. And ancient enigma of the symmetry of the decade explained. Ancient enigma of the symmetry of the decade explained. And the enigma is that only a handful on this actual earth understand. And it's the one with the point, with a sharp, stable point of the ether, which moves you to 1,000. Like, or you could just be like a good systematic person and just do this and get to 8. Have you ever noticed there's a cadence in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? You always kind of bounce off that 8. But people usually bounce back and then they go into the cycles and they go into numbers that really don't matter. So when you go back to that, what does he say? But really from Genesis, may God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth. I mean, the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth. That people live in the spiritual community the opposite. They don't know how to use this earth to do the great manifesting of the ethereal. They don't do it. And especially, it's demonic, it's an agent when you see all these people out there in the media and you see all of them saying, you can't enjoy this earth, you can't take the dew from it, and you can't enjoy the fatness of it while they're the ones doing that. You're a fucking shill if you've fallen for that. You're a shill. You've fallen into the spell again, and that's their new spell, right? You already fell for it, that you're not allowed to go out and enjoy can't even go outside, your kids can't do things, you can't do all that. You already fell for that shit. Now you're falling now for this new shit? I mean, what else are you going to fall for? You're already an experiment that they already are doing this. Like, I wonder what's going to happen with all those people. Like, we already saw the first wave of people the first 18 months pass away. Wonder what this next 18 months is going to look like. And I've been doing all this work for so long and calling people to fucking get the fuck out and giving the warning signs. And I even said, rising through the darkness, little did I know that the rising through the darkness would literally be rising and getting out of this bullshit reality and knowing the divinity and knowing how to get the fuck out. And it's interesting that wrong direction. Yeah. That it is divine union in every hermetic understanding of pointing towards, and this one is the encapsulation of the crab. But in a weird way, it almost looks like there is a fucking lion on top of that crab, which is fucking crazy. But it's divine union, which, to finish this off about agents, and I went into some of this recently, but I'll just to reiterate a little bit here. And it was crazy because I was actually watching a video I did in school on this, and it was just like one of those moments where I'm just like, people just at this point don't get it. You have the masculine side here, the phoenix. You have the feminine side here. On the feminine side, you see a sun and a moon. You see a king and a queen. You see a lion and you see the antelope. You always see hermetic. There's Hermes with his staff, always pointing, look up. And what is he telling you to look at? Divine union together is the only way, with Mercury and understanding how to get out of this spherical influence and get to these higher realms, they're going to show you many different ways, is what? Divine union that can only create children and create family and create motherhood. And that's when a woman finally gets the power to feel like she can go. I know that might be fucking triggering. The masculine has to understand what it is and has to know how to control its ego and not let the ego get out of control into fighting and killing. There's a dark and a light side to the phoenix. The masculine especially. Same thing with the feminine, of denying themselves the ability of knowing how to be what creates. If Mercury can only come to a stable point, and once it finally does, has the ability to become the parent and the king of the planets, that when you came here in embodiment to understand your life and where you're going here, there's no way for you to get where you want to go as a masculine if you're fucking going to be on the dark side. And Andrew Tate, right? He's even a fighter too, which I think is funny. And everybody's like, oh, I look up to that shit. Look at, oh, wow. I'll just call that one out spade to spade. Once the masculine has understanding of what to use that peacock energy in that ego for, which is the strength and the determination to fight, not physically, but spiritually against the darkness, and have the courage to join in unison with the feminine together into the understanding of this great celestial, ethereal, and again, that ethereal energy is, right? You get to that ethereal, and then this is the celestial, and then you have to go up another level into the super celestial, and there's another ladder of contemplation to get to where we're at the exact moment where the north node's in Taurus and the south node's in Scorpio. And that's how you get to this higher realm now. So it's everywhere. It's in the astrology. It's in every hermetic energy I go into. It's in John Dee's work. It's in fucking Dante's work. It's in everywhere I have been trying to show people for fucking years. And you know what an agent is? No. I don't want to show up and be your king, or I don't want to show up and be queen and come together in an understanding that's not about so much role playing, but just much more about understanding the natural way of coming together. And there's no obedience. There's none of that bullshit, because it's the understanding, as he's not only saying to look up, he's understanding where the feminine knows how to actually bring together, and the actual energy of witches, which understood how to use the nature and how to use the land and how to use all these things to come up with these crazy, amazing, like different stuff. But you also don't want to get lost there and be looking down, because that's too stuck on earth. And that's where a lot of the problem is there's a lot of people, and especially feminine, who are so connected to this earth and they're so connected to this place, but you know, they're never going to get higher up if the men are always looking up. Where can I achieve? Where can I do things? But the peacock looks down. Look at me instead of looking up. It doesn't say look at me. It's like I'm looking at God. I'm looking at the ethereal, right? And there's that reptile nature in men that they have to fucking know how to bring in, but also harness. But also, it's interesting because it is also the beak too, or like one of the legs, right? Like knowing how the embodiment of like what do you embody and what do you don't. So men have to deal with their shadow shit, right? Especially more than the feminine. But the feminine shadow, believe it or not, has to do with their obsession with where they're going, and if they're on the mission, and it's with the way that the earth works and getting too caught up into that. It's like, yeah, I understand that, but then move on and go, right? Know how to be nurturing and know how to hold the frequency here for all of us of this earth. And the masculine shows up, and here's the tree of quote unquote life, right? With all the planets. All the planets. But it's rare to understand this if you're just sitting around and being like, well, I've got a great co-star. I know my rising. It's so much more astrology than even knowing your perfection year or knowing all these other things. It's so much more. It's understanding the whole systematic understanding of alchemy and the Hermeticism. It's understanding the work of one of the greatest astrologers in the whole world that they say nobody can crack. And I can't believe, as sitting here as an astrologer for fucking the last 12 plus years, looking around and going, no, but none of these guys that I know, none of these women that I know ever want to take a crack at this motherfucking shit. Ever want to break down the Hermeticism and the alchemy and the astrology and mix it with? I'm the only one that's actually shown you where we're here now. We're here now in every fucking image. We're here now. I don't know what to tell people. I mean, we're fucking here now. We're here. I don't know what to tell people. You know, it's like I fucking am like, literally, we just had the eclipses that were at this point. People chose purgatory or they chose to get on the right side in 2021. We're fucking here now. I don't know what else to tell people. I mean, we're fucking here. And this is my big gift to everybody in the world. This is out of all the years of all my work. This is my gift to you. You know, this is my gift. This is my Jupiter Venus gift for you all. Jump. Don't jump off a building. Don't fucking do some stupid shit like that. But spiritually jump fully, or stay in the fucking tyrant world. Stay fucking in that, because you're going to get stuck there. And I gave you warnings for many years and it all happened. This is my warning of being stuck here. That there's no more time left. Because there is no more time. There is no more time. It was blown up by all the Capricorn transits. That you can't just keep sitting on this ladder of contemplation of Saturn to go into the divine in heavens. I'm going to contemplate my life, and I got to contemplate what I need to do and how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to get out of the system and how I'm going to find who I am and all that. That's all Saturn shit. That's all traps. You just know. You follow happiness. You follow love. You follow the jump of where it's just like a child. It's the consummation with God, which is pretty, I know that goes back to some really old weird shit. But there is a alchemical, spiritual, divine union with God. But also in counterparts too, that the only people you should be even wanting to engage with in emotional, spiritual, sexual, living, any kind of connection should be one of consummation together to create for God. Period. You can't fuck around anymore at this point after this full moon in Aquarius that we had. You can't fuck around anymore with fucking somebody who's not fucking on that tip. And if they're not on that tip, you're literally fucking giving away to an agent. There's no other way out. It's just all going to take you to the abyss. I'm going to be alone, and I'm going to keep being in the deception, and I'm going to keep trying. You know, it's like all these influencers, like, I got to show how badass I am by how much I made and how much I make and what I got, and fucking that's the life to live of happiness is once you buy a house and blah, 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 blah. Some fucking crazy girl, everybody sent me the fucking YouTube, is trying to talk shit on spiritual daddy. I don't give a fuck. She's like, Leo King, I can't believe him. He's a deceptor. Like, if he's so rich, why doesn't he have a house? I'm like, have I ever talked about how rich I am? I've just talked about how I put everything into the mission and tried to say that I don't fucking sorry, I own the businesses that fucking own the studio. The bitch fucking tried to say that I don't own the studio. It was fucking crazy. And fucking, it was just like, because all of my money, you know what it goes towards? The mission. Literally. So what? I choose to live in a nice apartment instead of have a big house while I have a big studio that I'm doing to fill like a Noah's Ark of people to do their fucking spiritual work. I don't, like, you're going to throw me down for not buying a house? and say that I'm not successful because I don't own a house? I laugh every time when I talk to people about going to get a house when I almost did. It was like, fuck, I don't know how I'm going to have a 14,000 square foot studio and a fucking like 10,000 square foot house or 7,000 square foot house or whatever. Fuck that. Or even a 2,000, 3,000 square foot house by myself without my divine partner. That's just insane. I just go home to literally chill with my cats, lay in my massaging bed, Moon and Taurus. Hey, that's part of the mission. Moon and Taurus. I got to fucking get I've always had an adjustable bed, you know, to rest after doing all this work. Watch some movies or research, go to sleep, take a shower, do my laundry, and come back here. That's my life. So, you know, what's the point of having an extravagant house by myself when I'm already in the house of God? Like, it's just fucking crazy. And you know what? You can't let anybody like that affect you. I laughed at it. I was just like, I didn't even put a comment. I was just like, geez, this woman's got some problems. She doesn't get it. But you can't fuck around anymore with people. Like, the agent shit's real. It's fucking real. There's no other way to get to this top. I mean, even here they are again. There's the angels pointing to go higher again. So once you've thought I've already reached my awakening. Yeah, then you got to go higher. The angels will even say, it's higher than me. Anybody that puts out the spiritual work and says it stops at me and doesn't take you even higher to God, they're a fucking agent. And relationships that don't do this and the understanding where they both are looking at, and what again? Another cross, another 10, right? I just did this right now. I'm hypergating shit. Hypergating is the understanding of that all the divine knowledge is accessible in the spiritual fucking download of a hypergate once you understand all this shit, and you'll see it everywhere, right? And what is that in astrology? That's the part of fortune. The embodiment of the soul in spirit in this physical reality. And it hits the angel. It hits the feminine. It hits the angel. It hits the masculine. And it takes you right up to the divine that's connecting all that down. Last image here. I mean, you can stay down here as those phoenixes, right? Those birds that are just not going to fly to God. Or you could both point. See how the masculine is understanding of how to bring it, but the feminine is pointing up? It's the feminine that's here for the masculine to allow it to happen. The feminine is the doorway. The masculine shows up to the door. So masculines right now are having a problem. I've been covering that on Spiritual Daddy. I've been covering that in a lot of things. Because feminines are requiring a lot. But I mean, there's going to be a point to where it's like, is it just because you're still holding on to bullshit, feminine? I know there's a lot of bullshit masculines out there that are holding on to hardcore bullshit. But what about those very few that are out there? What about those few that are actually fucking doing it? But you're still focused on that ex or that weird person stuck in the fucking tyrant fucking abyss? You can't let go of that or let go of the trauma of that shit? You can't let go of shit? And you think just one day it'll all come and then, oh my God. Because once you alchemize together and grow, then you do become the king and the queen and you do get your way out. There's no other way. There's literally no other way. And that's also within yourself. But again, This is the stuff after you've already learned the embodiment of yourself and your own happiness and in your own life. But you're letting the system fuck with you. And that's the problem. Because you'll be dealing with these kind. I drew this in 2006. And these are the kind of entities that are just fucking, that you can't see. That I drew this March 2006. Ironically enough, the last time North Node and Uranus were together. And that was what I channeled drew. And I was like, these are the beings that are watching. It's the dark feminine. So, to close this down, that's really where it's at. That this Mars retrograde that comes this October with the eclipses at the end of the ability to get to the heavens and all that shit. I don't know what to tell people. I mean, like, I'm somebody who, I just don't come with hocus pocus. I come with actual, like, here's the data. Here's where the astrology is. Here's where all that shit is. Here's where the hermetics come into play, hermeticism. Here's where the alchemists, here's where fucking, geez, one of the best astrologers that took it. I mean, imagine in 1564 writing that in 12 days. And I always leave people whenever I show them, the work. Where'd it go? Oh, whenever I show them the work, I read them the last part, which is intellect, right? Judges truth, the contact at a point that the eye of the vulgar will here be obscured and most distrustful. That when you feel truth of God, and then you go, oh, you know what? Let me think about that. You feel love? Let me think about that. You feel what's right and the most pure? Let me think about that. You're now in the eye of the vulgar will here be obscured and most distrustful because you don't trust the truth, which is God. You judge what God has brought before you of the divine truth. When you start judging divine truth, you are a vulgar tyrant, obscured, and the most distrustful because you are what at that point? You are the deception itself. You are the agent. You are caught up in anxiety because the anxiety is knowing that you are dropping into the deception and that you are stuck in the vice of it, in the vice grip of the abyss that's pulling you under. And that you realize that you are a tyrant when you're at the bottom of hell, farthest away from paradiso. And you are the tyrant that is going to sit with the biggest tyrant of all, Lucifer, who went against God and the divine and wanted it for himself, not the oneness, not one for him. God asked Lucifer to go down as an archangel to go serve the people. And Lucifer said, no, these motherfucking people will serve me like how they serve you. And when you start putting it all on me, especially with this Jupiter retrograde in Aries, and this is a Venus in Leo that's direct while Jupiter's retrograde, I got to focus on just me and just myself. I'm not going to, here's all this beautiful trine, the last good benefic aspect we're getting this year. I don't know what to tell people. So the bigger question is to see if that you're able to be taken away that easy. And for people that are awake to know who agents are, it's whether or not they can drop back into that fucking tyrant world within a millisecond. And if you can see that and they can't be aware of that and they're too afraid of that and they're too caught up in that, you can't keep bouncing between both realities, both earth splits. You can't keep jumping back. You can jump back in the higher realms and all that, but you can't get stuck here and then get burned because that person just basically was a Decepticon, and really what they were was just falling into your vices, and then you realize, shit, I'm actually the one who's fucking not there either. And that's why only very few will make it and very few will ever get to it. It's that serious. It's that intense. It's all in. It's not, I'm just going to play with this shit. I'm just going to, like, you know, get my girlfriends together on a Friday night and pull some cards and laugh and, you know, like, that's great and all. And I I'm not telling people how to live their life. I'm just trying to say, like, hey, like, just look where we're at right now in the world. Those were moments to get you to this moment, to where you jumped fully and that you are in it. Not stay in your traps, not stay in the deception and stay in the lie. I really missed that Dylan couldn't be here. Sending my love to him, my prayers. I appreciate you all so much. Make sure that you join highvibe.tv, of course, to watch my daily video horoscopes and so much more, and weekly shows like Deep Astrology and so much. I appreciate you all. I hope this helps. This is my great gift to you. And I'll see you with Dylan on the next Before Dawn.